Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Basketball Conference, the ACC Football Podcast. My name's Joey Weaver. He is Mike McDaniel. Mike, we are back. It's been like a week or so off. We got some playoff games we got to talk about. We got some coaching news. We got a lot of things to hit on. How are you doing? You ready to talk some ACC?
8 days since our last podcast, which is pretty good. Pretty good.
Somehow I'm already rusty, clearly. So glad it didn't get any worse than that. Mike, it is a few minutes before 11 o'clock, Monday, December the 16th. We are live, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. I tweeted earlier today that we were going to be live around 10 o'clock. Then we scheduled it for 10:30, and it is now almost 11 o'clock. And we've got people getting on us in the chat. But, that's how we roll, Mike. That's, real ones know. OGs know.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you've been here a while, this is nothing new.
That's right. Mike, we got a lot of things we need to get into tonight. Do you want to start by jumping in? Let's preview some playoff games.
Yeah, let's start with that. Let's do that.
Let's start there. We got a couple playoff games. We'll start with those, and then we'll go back. We're going to hit the LA Bowl, which is coming up here in just a couple of days, and then we'll get into everything else afterwards. Let's start with the playoff. We'll do these in chronological orders. They are both being played Saturday, December the 21st. Starting off at noon on TNT, Noted College Football Network, you have the number 11 SMU Mustangs.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Nothing like your first college football broadcast of the year in one of the most important games of the year. Love
that.
That.
Yeah. Is it Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Chuck, and Shaq leading us in? Is that what's going on?
It better be.
It better be. Yeah, the best show on television. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 11 SMU on the road in Happy Valley, taking on the number 6 Penn State Nittany Lions. SMU an 8.5-point underdog here. Total is 53.5. Mike, we kind of briefly touched on this in our last episode when we announced, we had the announcement that SMU was in this game, that SMU underdogs here in a tough road environment. We're already seeing some reports early this week that there's some snow on the ground up in Happy Valley, which is exactly what we were talking about 9 months ago, projecting what this playoff is going to look like. Is hopefully somebody's got to go from the south to the north and play road games in December, and here we are. But we kind of agreed. I mean, Penn State, a pretty good team, honestly, deserving of the top 5 ranking that they had. Clearly, they gave Oregon more or less everything they could handle in the Big Ten championship game. Has had a strong year other than not being able to beat Ohio State, which what's new there. And yet I do feel like SMU, the defense has played well enough at times. And the offense just has a way of picking up big chunk plays against seemingly anyone that they play against. I'd give SMU a puncher's chance here.
I do too. I wish the weather situation was a little bit better. I think if they go into an environment where there is snow on the ground, they'll clear the field, obviously, but if it's like snowing and really cold and like not 60 degrees like it is in Dallas this time of year, that changes things a little bit, I think. Penn State's used to playing these types of games. I think where this gets a little bit challenging for SMU is they got to prove that they can move the ball on this type of defense, right?
Agreed.
I think they proved it a little bit in the ACC title game. I'm not sure how much better. I think Penn State's defense is better than Clemson's, but I don't think it's a ton better. And SMU proved that in the second half, they could move the football and capitalize in the red zone, and they made headway there. I don't think you can go on the road in Happy Valley in this type of game and fall behind like you did against Clemson. I don't think you can do it and come back and win. I think that's going to be too tough of an ask. It cannot be the same game script it was in the ACC title game. However, I do think that Kevin Jennings presents some issues for Penn State's defense that they haven't seen a ton of in the Big Ten. Look who they've played, right? They haven't played a ton of guys who can really give you issues from a dual threat standpoint like Jennings. And
it's a great point.
When all else fails and Jennings just decides he's going to run the football, right? He's going to scramble, play breaks down, and he's going to go get his. He's proven he can do that, and he's done it all year. And he is kind of the X factor here, I think, in this entire football game. He's a game breaker. He is like one of the game breakers here in this playoff game, and he's playing for the underdog.
Yep.
Because of that, right, and because of SMU's propensity just to pretty much score on everybody, they're going to have to prove it one more time here against a very good team on the road in a tough environment. They're going to have to prove it in potentially bad weather. That scares me a little bit. I like SMU plus the 8.5. I'm not sure they pull it off. It's worth a sprinkle, though. And I think of all the playoff games this weekend, all the first-round games, I think this is the one where I look at and I'm like, you know what? If I had to pick one for an upset, I think this is it. I think this is it. Just because of Jennings and how he can impact the football game.
I like the sprinkle. 260 on the money line.
Yeah, see, like that's decent value on the road with a quarterback, by the way, on the other side, and Drew Allard, he's announcing he's coming back for next season, which is great news for Penn State. But a guy who has a tendency to turn the football over a little bit and make some throws he probably shouldn't. This is the one I have circled, right? And I think SMU plus the 8.5 is a play here. I am pretty fearful of locking anything up. I think 8.5 is a pretty good line because the path is there for Penn State, right? If they play their game here, I think they'll be okay. But Jennings is going to factor in here, and I think he's going to make a play or two that keeps SMU in it. And if this is a one-score game in the fourth quarter, I would not want to be Penn State.
I think the point about Penn State not having seen a quarterback like Kevin Jennings is a great one. And I look down this list of teams that they played, and I think about the quarterbacks there, and for the most part, you're right. I mean, not only like is there no one quite like Jennings that I think that they've seen, I don't know how much they've seen like a reasonably mobile quarterback for most of this year. I mean, you saw Will Howard against Ohio State. He's definitely mobile, but he's not as athletic as Jennings is. You know, he's not going to make guys miss and run away from him in the way that Jennings can. It's kind of a weird season for Penn State of like, what do we make of this? Because again, that defense has been excellent, and they have kept basically everyone down to very little. I mean, Ohio State scored 20 points on them. The only teams to score more than 20 points, Bowling Green, USC
Play the
in
sound, Scott.
overtime.
There it is.
That's right. Bowling Green scored more than that. USC in overtime scored 30. Minnesota scores 25 of all teams, and then Oregon obviously 45 in the Big Ten championship game. But it's like they've held basically everybody down. But again, I don't know how good the offenses have been, and the ones that have scored, there's not really like a clear through line there of what is what they're weak against. So again, this is a little bit hard for me to handicap, and it's where I feel like I like the idea of the money line sprinkle. I think there's a chance that SMU could win this game on the field. I also like the potential of like an alt line. Like, can I get Penn State minus 13.5 or something? You know, like there's a chance that SMU could win. There's a chance that Penn State blows them out, basically. And it's a little bit hard to project what's going to happen here. I think I agree with you, Mike. I'm going to take SMU plus the points. 53.5. This feels a little lower scoring to me, a little bit, maybe like Penn State, like 24-17, 27-20, something like that. But I don't know. It's again, I don't have a great read on it, but I definitely agree with the idea that SMU absolutely can go in and win this game.
Real quick before we move on, I think an overgame favors SMU, right? Like,
Yes.
This thing gets shootouty. I think I'd rather have Jennings and Aller.
I agree. If you tell me right now that somebody's going to win this game 20-17, it's probably Penn State.
Agreed.
If you tell me somebody's going to win 38-34, it's probably SMU. Like
SMU's threading the needle. If they're winning an under game, I think they're threading the needle a little bit, right? Which hey, we're at that time of year where that's what you have to do. Just win the football game. Win by a point. 9-7. fine. Survive, advance, get yourself to a bowl game, and get yourself into the real meat of this bracket.
The elements are definitely a concern here too, as you mentioned. Is can SMU?
Yeah,
I looked it up on multiple sources. We checked AccuWeather and the Weather Channel because I like to be well informed, and we got mid to high 20s, breezy, chance of snow.
Yeah,
sounds
nice
cold.
Yeah, does that scream dynamic downfield passing?
No.
Kind of screams nobody wants to tackle, but
nobody wants to tackle Kevin Jennings. Could be fun.
Yeah,
could be fun.
Absolutely could be. So can SMU move the ball on Penn State, and can that defense? Penn State's offense has not been highly dynamic. So I think if you have a good plan here and you're able to execute, and again keep this close or even play with lead, I think the Ponies have a chance here. We'll see.
Yep, I agree. We'll see.
SMU plus the 8.5 for the both of us. I'm not locking anything up. I'm not even going to make a play on the under. I think that's one of those pretty good, but also just completely in the middle, who the hell knows kind of numbers. So pass.
Yeah, pass.
Look this up for Alexis Alaris, who commented who is doing the refs for this game. At least for this game, SEC crew. Why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Reasons, I'm sure.
That's as long as it's not that crew that did the Miami Virginia Tech game and a couple other consequential ones this year. Devin Hamilton, spicy baby, love it.
I do want to call this, Franklin will choke. He always does. I just wanted to mention that I thought one of the funniest things I heard in the preseason is a bold prediction was James Franklin will be the first head coach to lose a home playoff game, and that's what we're saying right now.
It was on.
I wouldn't put it past him.
It was on Split Zone Duo, and Richard Johnson gave us a that's pretty good.
Sounds about right.
Sounds right. Yeah.
All right, let's move on here. Let's go to 4:00 on TNT. The number 12 seed Clemson Tigers on the road in Austin, taking on the number 5 Texas Longhorns. Clemson an 11.5-point underdog in this game. Totals 51.5. Mike, again, as mentioned on our previous episode, I don't like this matchup for Clemson at all. If nothing else, that Texas's defense has been really nasty basically all year. And just Clemson's offense has not been consistent enough for whatever, for how much they struggled to run the ball against SMU and South Carolina. I think Texas's defense is going to be even better defending the run. You're going to have to be consistent and kind of consistently explosive through the passing game if you're Clemson here. I don't like that matchup at all. I think Clemson's defense can probably cause issues for Texas, but it just seems like it totally depends on what kind of game plan Texas is going to run. Either it's going to work really well or it's going to be really clunky and unnecessarily close here, it feels like.
Under 51.5, lock it up.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up. Lock it up.
Please.
I like
hit the nail. Yeah, I mean, hit the nail on the head. I mean, the way I look at this is I think Clemson's offense, the thing I'm least sure about in this game is Clemson moving the ball on Texas's defense. That's the thing I'm least sure about. I think Clemson's defense is going to cause some issues for Texas, whether it's Quinn Ewers or to a lesser degree Arch. Ewers will throw it to you, right? That, and I think Clemson's defense is good enough to bottle up the Texas rushing attack, which if they don't have that going and Ewers is in obvious passing downs, their receivers have been kind of banged up and not getting open. Isaiah Bond, he's not practicing all week. They're hoping he can play here. That's not what you want to hear. He's their most dynamic threat at receiver. He's kind of the game breaker, take the top off the defense, as we saw last year at Alabama. I have a hard time seeing Texas really pull away here. I think Clemson's defense will keep them in it. I think if Clemson's offense has a good enough game plan and they can score 17 to 20 points here, they're going to be in this football game. They're going to be in it. And Dabo has this way of, I know that he's struggled against Georgia the last couple of years. Okay. Who hasn't? Georgia Tech. But outside Georgia Tech, who hasn't? not really anybody else. Dabo has a way of keeping his team in games like this when it's not Georgia. Sark has a way of getting into games like this against really, really good coaches and forgetting how to coach, like not being able to coach his way out of a paper bag, kind of like getting too cute on offense. And could I see him doing some of that here? Yeah. Do I think it helps there at home? Yeah. Like it's not, you're not in a neutral, it's basically like a road game in the SEC title. You're not, you're not traveling on the road. And I don't know. He has a tendency to get cute in these games, which is why I think the spread is interesting. I don't think it's like an automatic, yeah, I'm hammering Texas, or yeah, I love Clemson. I just think that just from a game script standpoint, I think Clemson, there's a path for Clemson to ugly this up and keep themselves in it. And they've struggled, Clemson has struggled to run the football, but Klubnik has not been awful this year. Like he's been okay. He's improved, I think, more than I expected him to in his third year of college football. Like this is by far his best year. And he's had some games where he's looked really, really sharp. And I think if you get that kind of game here against a very, very good Texas defense, Clemson will be right in it. I think they ugly it up. I think they keep it close. Gun to my head, I'm going Clemson plus the 11.5, just because what I've seen out of Texas against top flight defenses, like really good defenses, which I think Clemson has one, Ewers has been kind of not great, right? And Sark, weirdly, like in the SEC title, just didn't feel like going to Arch Manning at all, which is really weird. We were talking about that in our text thread.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there's a path for Clemson to ugly it up. I'll say Clemson plus the 11.5. I really like the under in this game, though, out of the 3 games this weekend, the 2 playoff games and the LA Bowl. In regard to ACC teams, this is the play I like the most, under 51.5.
I agree with that. I think that's my favorite thing here. I'm not going to lock it up. I feel like I'm stealing your ideas if I do that, but I think that's probably the right play here. I think I'm going to lay him with Texas.
Okay.
And I think this is where, like, one of my thoughts here is that I would probably feel different about this game if Brent Venables were still the defensive coordinator for Clemson. Because I think that he had a way of just cooking up some schemes and just staying one step ahead of opposing play callers and like that kind of thing that I do think would find a way to muddy this up and make it harder for Texas than necessarily it will be. I feel like there's just been something a little bit that's gotten lost in his departure, and it's like we talked about the quarterback situation, right? Like you had 2 of the very best quarterbacks of a generation, and there's something different from that versus having a really good quarterback, right? Like there's still something that can be lost there. And I think you had arguably the best defensive coordinator in college football, and now you have good ones, and there's something lost there. So I don't trust Clemson to keep this close. And I think if Texas comes out and plays anything close to their best game, they probably win this in going away, like no problem.
Yep.
I feel dumb that we're in a playoff game. I'm going to be laying double digits because it just feels like historically that's not the smart move, but I just don't think that highly of this Clemson team to go on the road into Austin with a Texas team that feels like they probably need to prove something after losing again to Georgia. And again, having that example of what Georgia did to Clemson to start the year, and this Texas defense probably more or less every bit as good.
Yep.
I'm gonna roll with Texas here. I think they roll here and move on into the quarterfinals.
Fair enough.
Yep. Texas. Go ahead.
Go ahead,
Scott.
Oh well.
Oh.
Producer's pick of the week is Clemson plus 11.5.
Wow. Oh baby. Oh. Okay.
I actually think they can win this game. So I'm going to sprinkle the money line with my own Van Gorder coin. It's plus 340 on the money line. Decent value. The main reason I like it is Dabo's been there before and won there before, and Sark hasn't. And
what, Austin?
Playoffs. Sorry.
Fair enough.
Sure,
Playoffs?
Austin.
You kidding me?
Playoffs. Also, Cade Klubnik, homecoming.
True.
So
No notes.
I like them to cover. With 11.5, I like them to cover.
There's something in the lore here of like a Cade Klubnik versus Quinn Ewers rematch from like the Texas high school playoffs like 5 years ago or whatever it was. Like there's something there. I forget what it is. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, that'll get mentioned on the broadcast, I'm sure. Maybe 100
Sure it
times.
will.
I was gonna say they'll hammer that one home.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Texas minus the 11.5 for me. Clemson plus the 11.5 for Mike and Scott. Both Mike and I have under 51.5 in that one. All right. So we both have, I think we both tentatively have favorites moving forward, but at least you're saying potential of an upset there in Austin. We're both saying potential of an upset in Happy Valley. So we'll see what the ACC is able to do in these first round playoff games.
Can we get one through?
I was just about to
We'll
say
see.
one out of two wouldn't be bad.
Yeah. I'd have to go look back at our preseason I feel like one of us at least thought that they would win. Like the ACC would have one playoff win. You'd either win a first round game or make it through to the semifinal, I guess. But we'll see if that was right or not.
I mean, we already got more teams in than I expected to, like halfway through the year. So.
That's true. Good point. All right, let's move on. Let's preview the ACC's first bowl game. It is less than 48 hours from now. It is at 9 o'clock Wednesday, December the 18th. It is the Art of Sport LA Bowl hosted by Gronk. Is that right? I don't have the logo in front of me.
That's correct. That is correct.
Nailed it.
Yeah. We're really getting adventurous with the bowl names these days. The Cal Golden Bears taking on the number 24 UNLV Rebels. This is a pick'em. Nobody favored. Total is 47.5. We would have gotten to this here in a little bit. Let's just bring this up now. Fernando Mendoza is in the portal for Cal. Do we know, is he playing in this game? Probably not.
Probably not.
Give me UNLV.
UNLV's coaching staff's in the portal.
That's fine. Like I don't know what Cal's doing if they don't have Mendoza out there playing quarterback. It seems like at times he's kind of the only thing that's able to function with this offense. And UNLV has been good this year. I mean, they gave Syracuse some hell. They, got to the Mountain West championship game. Like that's been a good team this year. But you're correct. Yeah, no Barry Odom, and who knows who else is going to stick around and coach the bowl game. But I think that UNLV is equipped to beat a Cal team if Mendoza is not there. But at the same time, it's a bowl game. Who knows who wants to be there and who doesn't?
I mean, if everybody has all their players, UNLV is probably favored here by almost 10, right?
Maybe 10. Maybe 5 or 6. Maybe 10 seems like a lot.
You got the flip a coin feature available?
I do.
Remember that last year?
We got what are we
You ready?
thinking? What do you guys want? Heads for Cal, tails for UNLV?
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Let's do it.
Scott, you pulling it up, or do you want me to hit Siri up here?
Tails.
Yep. UNLV, right? Is that what I said?
That's what. Yeah.
Okay.
what I said.
UNLV's pick. UNLV's pick.
Hold on. I love that you brought this up because do you guys remember last year when I flipped the coin and then I lost the coin? Do you guys remember that?
Yes.
It flew across the room.
That was
Maybe
awesome.
coming to a full bowl preview episode near you again.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. I like that. We need to figure out a way to do the thing with you put the piece of cheese next to the two teams on the wall and see which one the dog goes and eats first. Or
Oh yeah.
I mean, you could do all sorts of wacky picks for these bowl games.
I do not volunteer my dog at the exact moment in time. He's going through some digestive battles.
Yeah. Well, maybe just slop some wet food or something on the wall. Anyways.
Yeah.
I'll just go to my son and I'll be like, "Do you want yogurt or oatmeal?"
There you go.
Do the who was it? Laura Rutledge had her daughter forever crawl to the helmet when the daughter was small, and she would pick games every week, and she had a winning record for 2 straight years just picking helmets.
Maybe I'll do that with just the logo on my phone, and I'll use my wife's phone, and we'll just get him to crawl to one.
Yeah. Yep, that's how we're gonna pick games.
Totally normal sport.
Yep.
All right.
10-month-old energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Total's 47.5. I'm leaning under there. This might be a slugfest, kind of low scoring.
17-12.
Yeah. Yeah, why not?
I think
Cal's
I
got a
said
good enough
UNLV,
kicker to hit
right?
4 field goals.
Yeah. It's fine with me.
There you go. All right, UNLV for the both of us and the under for the both of us. And that's all the previews we got for now. We did talk about we're going to come back probably this Thursday, thereabouts. We'll see kind of what the timing looks like. But we're going to come back here in a couple days and preview the next batch of ACC bowl games because we do have one on the day after Christmas, 2 the day after that, and then 4 the day after that. Then we might have a little bit of a break before New Year's Eve, January 2nd and January 3rd as we kind of wrap up. And we might have another playoff game. Who knows?
Maybe.
So, yeah, leaning towards 2 more preview episodes to cover all of the bowl games. So keep it tuned here.
Hey, real quick, Joey. We have
mm-hmm.
a SEC fan in the chat.
Do we? Hey, welcome.
Hook 'em.
Who's your favorite Atlantic Coast Conference team from west of the Mississippi? We've got 3 of them now.
Yeah, you can claim whoever you want. The water's warm.
Yeah. There's no rules. No.
Totally
normal sport, like we said.
His other comment is better. Melissa Kurtz, Skip Bayless, college football.
Oh, okay. We're
You
getting,
get the show, Hook 'em horns.
I was
Thanks
gonna
for coming.
say we're getting the juices flowing here. This is good. This is good.
Them's fighting words. You can get yourself banned from these comments
well,
trying to start something. Invoking the name of Skip Bayless.
I know, right?
Quickly, Mike, as a reminder, these previews brought to you by Section103.com, the internet's premier place for all things wonderful Georgia Tech apparel. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, something for men, women, children, babies, something for the whole family. Get it all, Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC. Checkout. They've got NIL shirts. They've got an NIL refund kind of deal that just got announced. If you buy a Zach Pyron shirt and he transfers, or you buy an Eric Singleton shirt and he transfers, or a Miles Kelly shirt and he transfers, you get a sweet gig. I think it's 30% off your next order from Section103.com. So go check that out. And then the word on the street is that they've got something big that they're announcing tomorrow, and that would be on Tuesday the 17th. So I assume you're following Section 103 on the socials, and so if you are, that's where you'll find out what the big announcement is. I think there's inside knowledge. I get some inside knowledge. I think there's something pretty sweet coming down the road. So keep tuned there. Section 103 on Instagram or on Twitter. Go find them there. As a reminder, one more time, Section103.com. Use promo code GOACC for 10% off your first order. Shout out to Steven and the gang. Appreciate their support of another season of the Basketball Conference podcast, as always.
Shout out, Steven.
Shout out to Steven. All right, Mike. Well, we somehow managed to get through these game previews in under 30 minutes, which is a full-on land speed record on this podcast. But we got some other stuff we got to talk about.
What?
You looking for the words here?
8-time Super Bowl champion.
Chapel.
I was gonna say 8-time Super Bowl champion, 6 as a head coach for my New England Patriots. Bill Belichick is now coaching in the ACC, which is spectacular for content.
Yeah, it sure is. Really can't believe we didn't see this coming 3 months ago. I mean, it was clear this was always going to end up here with Bill Belichick in Chapel Hill.
I'm probably not breaking any new ground here because a lot of you are college football sickos listening to the same podcast stuff we do, and I share the same sentiment. I cannot believe this is happening.
Yeah, no, I can't either. When this was like the news, and even like a few hours before it was officially announced, and it's like, oh, they're finalizing a deal with Bill Belichick. I'm like, are they? Like, this is gonna fall through with the Board of Regents. Like, I'm ready for the other shoe to drop here, or to find out like, nope, that didn't happen, because like, of course it's not gonna happen, right? Yeah, Nuke Jacket nailed it.
Widens his dating pool quite a lot. Yes, it does. Yes, it
Oh
does.
boy.
Knew that was coming.
So I mean, initial thoughts on this. I mean, obviously the man knows how to coach ball. But I think we talked about before. Do you know the last time that Bill Belichick coached college football?
This would be the first time.
Yeah, I believe it never. So, like,
This would be the first
you
time.
know, I realize that he's got a certain persona in the media, and that's not like a real thing. He acts differently behind closed doors, and like this, that, and the other. And I know he's got all those rings, and then there's like a lot of discussion to be had about like, well, how much of it was him, and how much. Wow,
Elite comment,
that's
Devin Hamilton.
Devin Hamilton changing his tune a little bit from last
Can't
week.
wait. Can't wait to see for everybody on audio. Can't wait to see Tony Elliott show Bill how to coach. That's courtesy of Devin Hamilton, who hates Tony Elliott. Very funny. Yeah.
There's always the questions of like, well, how much of it was Bill versus how much of it was Tom, and all this stuff. I don't know. Look, I guess I have kind of two primary concerns here. As it relates to like this hire working out. And obviously, again, he knows how to coach ball. I don't think they're going to be bad. I just don't know that they're going to be much of any better than they have been. I think this is kind of just more of the same. And my concern, I do have a concern with the coaching piece of it. My concern is that I think what Bill runs on defense can be a little bit complicated. And, and my concern there is how does he teach that to his players, and how does he communicate that on defense in particular?
Yeah, to 18-year-olds.
Yeah, teaching it to professionals who their entire job is to figure out how to run your coverages and run your stunts and like all that stuff. Like that's one thing. Teaching it to some, slapdick high schoolers that just showed up in Chapel Hill 10 minutes ago, like that's a different ballgame. And like, what can you teach them and get them to digest? I just wonder what that looks like. And that's obviously on only one side of the ball, and there's going to be other coaches around him and like all this stuff. But that's just one of those things that I'm like, how's this going to work? Or is it?
So it's December 16th as we're recording this, right? That's important to timestamp that because as of right now, there are only two members of his staff, Freddie Kitchens, and
Who was on the staff
previously, and Mike Lombardi, who's the general manager, who's not a coach. He's just leading the NIL efforts and talent selection, etc. So the staff is going to matter a lot. Who he selects is going to matter a ton. That's the first thing. The second thing is I have a take on this, and this has the potential to age really poorly, but I'm going to bet against it not. What if the best thing about this Bill Belichick hire has already happened? And that is that UNC has now poured an investment into their football program that they haven't done previously. They've essentially committed to the full revenue share for football, which, a lot of people are going to poo-poo that, but UNC is a basketball school. They care about basketball. And now they're showing that they're going to care about football every bit as much. I don't want to say if not more, because North Carolina, the institution, is it's a basketball brand, a long-standing basketball brand. One of the greatest players of all time played at North Carolina, and they have a long list of others. But
Tyler Hansbrough?
They have Ty Lawson? What? But they have they now have an investment in football that they haven't had before. And they're going to commit to a full revenue share. The NIL is going to be upped, right? I mean, it's kind of convoluted right now because the revenue sharing isn't in place yet. But essentially, they're going to pour a bunch of money into this. And you have to, because that's the only way Belichick would have taken this job, right? That's the only way he would have taken it. He wants to coach really bad, but he doesn't want to coach a bad situation. He wants to walk into something that he feels like he can leave an imprint on in some way, shape, or form. I think I agree with you in terms of like how, like, what's the ceiling of North Carolina? I think I think the ceiling of North Carolina is still like 9 or 10 wins, but I kind of thought that before. I don't think it's 9 or 10 wins necessarily because Bill Belichick's the head coach. I think it's 9 or 10 wins because they've committed to the football program in a way that they haven't previously in terms of investment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Belichick's going to be bad. Belichick can obviously coach football, right? Like the Belichick versus Brady thing is something that fans discuss, but the players who have played for Belichick and the coaches in the NFL who have coached against him, they're like, no, that's two separate discussions. He's the greatest coach all time. He also had the greatest quarterback of all time on his team. Like, this guy is really, really hard to game plan against. I think he's going to bring that to college, but to your point, Joey, how are these kids going? These kids are not professionals. How are they going to execute against that game plan? When we sit here next year in North Carolina, they have a soft schedule, but when North Carolina drops a dumb one and they look poorly coached, we're going to be sitting here having the conversation of, are they actually poorly coached? Because we know who's coaching them. Are they actually poorly coached? Or is this a situation where he's coaching a scheme that his players can't adapt to? And obviously, at the college level, that's something he is going to have to change, potentially, right? He's going to have to make adjustments, and that will be on him and his coaching staff. That's why I think it's really important for him to get some college guys in the room in terms of coaches, guys who have been here before, coach at this level, understand what these kids can and can't grasp from a concept standpoint, because I think Belichick's going to be pushing the limits there. And I think there's something to Belichick saying that this is going to be a pro system in terms of getting guys ready to be professionals. And he said whether that's in football or business or whatever. I don't doubt that at all. But I just wonder how it's going to work. I don't think this is going to be like... Yeah. I don't think the floor is going to be like, oh my God, this is going to be a total disaster. Like
the ceiling is like, the roof.
It's going to be like the ceiling's the roof. It's going to be like a 3-9 North Carolina. Like, this guy's not going to have a clue what he's doing. No, I think the floor is going to be what it always is. It's going to be like, worst case scenario is like last couple years of Fedora. Best case scenario is probably what we saw in the best years of Fedora. Like,
yeah, that one year they made the ACC championship game, like
not 9-10 wins. Yeah. If I think a consistent 8-4 for Carolina would be an upgrade. That would be an upgrade.
Yeah,
a consistent 8-4 year over year, and Belichick like rides off into the sunset, and you gave him like 3 to 5 good years, and he raised the floor and put a bunch of money into the program. I think Carolina fans would absolutely take that.
I think so too. And I think the best way that I would sum up my thoughts here is that I realize that with the way that college football has been changing, we keep saying things like it's becoming more and more like the NFL. And I think that's true, but I think it's an oversimplification to say we're at a point that, oh, he was a coach in the NFL for a long time. He was really successful. Obviously, he can do it in college. There is still some significant difference here in what the college game is and what it means to be a head coach in college versus being a head coach in the NFL. Even a guy who spent some time as both like head coach and GM for the Patriots, right? Like, yeah, you still do have personnel decisions to make down here, but like the scouting and what you're looking for is kind of different in terms of looking for just like small edges in the NFL versus here evaluating pretty drastically different skill sets against drastically different levels of competition. And I mean, there's all that stuff that goes into it completely. But then also, he can coach football. Like, this job isn't all about coaching football.
No, it's not.
This job is also, about connecting and maintaining relationships with a bunch of 18 to 22-year-olds, which we know is not that far out of Belichick's capabilities these days, but it's a piece of the job. There's also a piece of this, and especially at a place like North Carolina, sometimes there's some booster politics you get involved with.
Yeah.
And and sometimes you got to get up in front of the media and kind of do some selling stuff, right? Because that's maybe the single biggest difference in college football and NFL is the importance of perception. And this is the thing that I've thought about. It is, how are you being perceived? It matters for things like polls, right? Like, we still use polls and human eye to decide how you get into the playoff versus, did you win your division? Did you win the games? Does the math say that you're the best team? then you're in the playoff. Boom.
Right.
There's obviously the recruiting piece, and yeah, like there's money, and we're getting towards contracts and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like it does seem like these players see this as more than just who's going to give me $10 more than the next place. Like there are a lot of things that kind of factor in there. So this is a sport where perception is a huge deal. And I don't know that we've ever seen Belichick in a place where he really needs to maintain how he or his team or his program are perceived. And again, I think that goes into a lot of different facets of what he's going to do here. And so that's where it's an odd hire to me, that there are things here that we have not seen him do. And, how does what he does adapt to the college game in 2025? And
yeah,
more so, the other thing that we probably got to mention too is, can he teach it? Can his players adapt to what he wants to do? It's one thing just base case doing that with 18 to 22-year-olds. It's another thing doing that year after year as a third of your roster turns over every year because people are leaving, people are coming. You're like, I don't know. There's aspects of this hire that don't make sense to me. And like you said, it's going to be fantastic for content, frankly.
I mean, a 72-year-old man dating a 20-year-old, I don't think he cares about perception.
There it is. Agree. Definitely agree. I think he's going to have to do the booster stuff and kissing ass in a way that he has not done in his entire football career. Yeah. He's going to have to they'll all kind of be bowing down to him in Chapel Hill, so maybe it'll be easier than I think it'll be, but he still needs to go out and play that persona, which again, you mentioned it, Belichick behind closed doors is different than the Belichick with the media. By the way, I don't think we're going to be getting, maybe I'm wrong, old dog new tricks thing, but I'm not sure we're going to be getting the Bill Belichick F the media persona here in college, because I think he understands. If you watched any of the introductory presser, it's pretty apparent that he's at least at the outset, going to embrace the media, because I think he understands the point that you just mentioned, at least right now, right before the game's been kicked off and he's really sinking his teeth into it. It's that perception of your program and marketing your program are really important, which is why I think it's interesting. He's going to be continuing to do the Manningcast stuff on ESPN. He's going to be continuing to put the program front and center in some way, shape, or form every week on a national stage, which he obviously would have never done with the Patriots, right? So I think he's going to adapt a little bit to that, and he's also been in the media, which I think he probably appreciates what goes into that now a bit more than he did as a coach in the NFL, right? Which he was just so laser focused on what he was doing. I think he probably has a little bit of a different viewpoint on that now, number one. But number two, I think just the marketing piece of it is different in college, and I think it's going to be interesting to watch that piece of it, because everybody's talking about the boosters. Now he's going to interact with X and Y, and is he going to go do in-home recruiting and all? I'm more curious of how's he going to get out in front of the media and talk about his program and his kids. And in the pros, you can talk about how, your quarterback screwed up or your DB screwed up, because you're paying them millions of dollars and you're paying these guys a lot of money, but they could also be here today and gone tomorrow. Or you could just say absolutely nothing and be fine and not alienate any of these kids that are all, it's a different era too. Social media, kids are generally softer. We see it on social media. All the flag planting stuff has been totally ridiculous in the wake of rivalry week. The last 10 days, we're seeing stuff brought forward in Congress. We could not be softer in that regard to people complaining about stuff. And I'm interested to see how he navigates that too, because it's going to be a tough program. Belichick's going to be F your feelings. If you get your feelings hurt, you can take a hike. It's going to be some of it's going to be different in college than it was in the pros when there's a level of accountability. One final thing I want to note is that a lot of these kids, I know they have class and girls falling all over them, all that stuff, but there's a level of access that you're going to get to the college player that you can't necessarily get to the pro player, because they got families, they got lives outside of the sport. A lot of these kids don't, right? These kids are coming in and it's all football all the time for most of them. And I'm interested to see now with like additional access and more opportunities, right, to coach and have meetings and all that stuff. Like, how does that impact things internally? Like, what's that going to look like? How different is that going to be versus what he's used to, where he's game planning by himself and his coaching staff, and then the players come in on Wednesday at the NFL level, and then they're practicing in shells for a couple days, and they're getting ready to go on Sunday. It's just different. So that's another element of it that's going to be interesting to monitor. But I don't see this as an extremely high ceiling hire, like national title contending North Carolina. Do I think that they could get in the mix in the ACC title race one of these few years that Belichick's there? Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's no reason to think they couldn't. Sure. They were recruiting well for the most part under Mac, except for the last couple of years. I think that they'll be able to acquire talent. It's just a matter of the coaching staff being good enough, understanding, what goes on at the college level and what that's going to look like. It's an interesting hire. There are some concerns there. It could also work. It could also work, and they could win 8 games a year, and that would be, I think, plenty fine.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like I don't think they'll be bad. I do think there's kind of a range of outcomes here, but we'll see. It's just, again, there's a lot that has to be adapted here for a guy who coached on Sundays for 45 years, something like that. I mean,
over 5 decades total. Yeah,
this is a bit of a different beast, so we'll see how that goes. Mike, should we move on elsewhere in North Carolina?
We tried to tell you.
College being a different beast.
We tried to tell you.
Yep.
This broke today.
Yeah, that was today. This afternoon, we found out Dave Clawson tendered his resignation as Wake Forest head coach. He is going to stick around within the athletic department, but Wake now will be on a search of some sort for a new head football coach. And like you said, Mike, I mean, this is something we've kind of projected, potentially even going back like a year ago. I mean, this is something where it just seemed like it was something that was going to happen. And, it sucks seeing the guy go out, as good as he was for as long as he was. It sucks seeing him go out with, what was it, 2 seasons of not making bowl games, I think. You did have the magical 2021 ACC championship run, which was great, but it sucks seeing it end like this. But at the same time, I mean, it's kind of like we've said, right? I don't think that Dave has forgotten how to coach or anything like that. I just think that his strategy to building a program and the way that it made sense to do so for him, his offense or his system at Wake Forest, it didn't apply anymore. And it just feels like continuing to try the same thing, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah. We've hammered this home so many podcasts leading up to this. This is just kind of like the final, just you kind of talk about one more time sort of thing. We know what the issues are, right? Like, Wake is one of those schools where, like, the NIL is an issue. They're not able to keep their players, retain their players. You're never going to recruit at a high level there. This is a bottom of the P5 job, right? I mean, it is. Clawson's been unbelievable there, which is why they should probably like build him a statue or something. He's been crazy good there for a while, and his system was a little like that slow mesh, little unique. Like, you got to do something unique at these types of jobs, and it worked for a while. But like with NIL, they take your best players off the team. Like, they just gut you, and this is one of those programs that cannot compete with NIL, right? So it's tough. I don't know who is interested in this job. I mean, it's an ACC job, so I mean, it will get some interest, but they got to go young here, right? I think young coordinator, maybe from the group of 5, FCS.
The first name that I saw that I loved was Jeff Monken. I mean, and his name keeps coming up for jobs left and right.
Sure, yeah.
But I mean, you want to talk about a guy who knows how to win in a tough situation, where you might be regularly outmanned. Like, Jeff Monken's been doing it for years in West Point.
Yeah. It's just going to turn into Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech at Wake Forest, which is fine. I think you kind of have to do that. And Dennis 133 said Bob Chesney is a name he heard. I think Bob Chesney should aim a little bit higher. No offense to Bob Chesney. He should or Wake Forest, I guess.
Scott Leffler or Alexis Solaris.
Man, that was funny. Yeah, I think Monken makes sense because of the option element and what they've looked like running the ball, except when they play Navy, of course. What they look like running the ball. Yeah, I think it's got to be something like that. They got to kind of turn into Paul Johnson, Georgia Tech, I think, in this era. And making bowl games is an accomplishment at this point.
Yeah,
so
kind of moneyball it a little bit. But, yeah, Wake right now 15th in the ACC in recruiting rankings this round. And, I mean, it's tough. And I'd be curious to talk a little bit. We're probably going to get Connor O'Neill on anyway to talk Wake Forest recap, basically, of the season. But I wonder if there's some things here, too, that any new coach that comes in that is going to have any amount of hype or expectations. I wonder if there's something that comes along with the school making it a little easier to transfer in, or, you can do some of these things that show that you're invested in a competitive football program. And
right.
It's one of those things that seems like it's a lot easier to make a couple of those changes when you have a new coach come in and you're trying to sell them or you're trying to build excitement within the fan base, things like that. But we'll see where they go from here because, yeah, I agreed with you. I mean, this is one of the toughest jobs, I think, in the country. And that's part of what made Dave Clawson so clearly amazing at it was that, I mean, he made what, like 8 bowl games in a row there or something, which is got to be damn near a record in Winston-Salem, but you look into it, and I think 2021, the ACC championship game year, I think that was the only year that he went over 500 in conference play.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was making bowl games every year, going 3-5, 4-4 in conference, and then winning 3 or 4 out of conference games, basically.
Yeah.
And so it was like you had to schedule your way into it. Was the only way to do it.
Yeah, tough job.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So
tough job.
Yeah, lot more to come on that. Not something we were necessarily surprised by. I think I told you earlier today that maybe if anything, I was surprised by the timing. Like, why did we wait 2 weeks after the season and a full week after signing day, like that kind of thing? But the event itself, not a big surprise to me.
Agree. Yeah, timing was weird, but everything else, no surprises.
Yep. Last thing we wanted to hit on here, we had some player news, and we're not going to be able to hit on all of it because it is just completely overwhelming to even try to keep up with it at this point. But we'll hit on a few of the highlights that we had. Some transfer information. So I think one of the big ones here was we had Duke quarterback Malik Murphy has entered his name into the transfer portal. We do not have any information on where he will be going as of yet, but that felt like a pretty big deal and kind of
Kentucky
unclear.
Today.
Yeah, visited Kentucky. I mean, who knows where that goes? I'm not particularly clear on what the circumstances were. I mean, it seems pretty clear that he was probably going to continue to be the guy there. So if that might just be a dollar bills thing or something else, I don't know.
They wanted an upgrade. I think they got one.
That's right.
Got one in Mensa, Darian Mensa from Tulane. It's going to be a new quarterback at Duke. He committed there after Malik Murphy left. And by the way, I think timing's important here. He committed very quickly after Murphy left, like within 48 hours. Tells you probably everything, just about everything you need to know there. I don't know this with 100% certainty, but I know with like 75, 80% certainty that pretty likely got pushed out. So interesting because he played okay this year, right? So
some school records, I think, if I'm remembering right. I mean,
Manny Diaz, I think he's looking at this and he's like, yo, my defense can be feisty anywhere. Let's upgrade to like a special quarterback from a good one or whatever. Yeah. Be my guest. I don't care what you call Malik Murphy, but let's upgrade from Malik Murphy and see if we can take this another step next year and Manny's probably looking around like, maybe I could take a bigger job.
Yep.
So, got a window here, I think.
Yeah. Yep. We'll see how that goes. Stanford quarterback Ashton Daniels, he's transferring to Auburn.
Why?
Sure.
Why? Why?
The same
I know
Auburn
he's an Atlanta guy.
The same Auburn that just got Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma, which, okay. So what were you promised when you committed to Auburn? Were you promised a shot at the starting quarterback job? Because I think if you give Jackson Arnold an offensive line, I would sure like to see that versus Ashton Daniels. Like, I think we know what we got there potentially. My opinion.
I'm trying to figure out how long. Like, was Daniels a grad transfer? And really what I'm getting at is I sure hope so, because a degree with Stanford University on it sounds a lot different than a degree from Auburn University.
Yeah, especially when you're probably going pro in something other than sports.
Yeah. For a guy who projects to be the backup quarterback at the new stop. So we'll see how that goes. Staying in California, Cal's quarterback, Frank Mendoza, went 98 yards with the boys, was in tears getting bowl eligible, and is now gone. He's in the portal. Bye-bye.
Yeah. He can probably just go to one of those G5 schools on the West Coast if he wants to. I have a feeling they pushed him out too.
I think he's a South Florida guy. Cam said that he watched him play a little bit in high school, so I wonder if he doesn't move a little closer to home as well. I think that's possible. Obviously, they've also changed over the offensive staff out there, so there might have been some sort of
come to Jesus
mismatch. Yeah,
maybe he can just
quite possible
go play at South Florida.
Yep, maybe.
Yeah.
Georgia Tech backup Zach Byron, who got some playing time over the years. He's transferring to Minnesota. He's going to go row the boat, which, all right, it's probably a good pickup for the Golden Gophers, assuming he can stay healthy. And then N. Dennis, I believe, mentions that we got confirmation that Haynes King, Aaron Philo, both will be back for Georgia Tech in 2025. And I believe in Blacksburg, we got the same from Kyron Drones and Pop Watson. So, kind of the same first string, third string, both going to be back. So that's a good sign for continuity for both of those programs.
If Drones starts games next season for Virginia Tech, no reason to think he won't. If he starts games next season, first time since 2011 through 2013 that Virginia Tech has had a starting quarterback play games in 3 consecutive seasons. So It's been a while since they've had continuity.
Yep. And then producer Scott just reminded me, we have a new quarterback in Tallahassee. You might know him as Thomas Castellanos.
Sure. I mean, sure. He fits he was with Malzahn at UCF. He fits the Malzahn mold of a running back that can throw sometimes. He fits that mold. I don't know.
Honestly, if they're going to run some more Malzahn-esque stuff down there, I think that's a great fit for him. And he can definitely do that. But I think he's maybe a little bit more athletic, but he is not the passer that Jordan Travis was. And Travis wasn't exactly carving defenses up with his arm either,
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've spilled a lot of verbal ink on Castellanos over the last couple of years. So I won't go any further, but
it's for sure an upgrade over everything that Florida State had in their room this year. For sure an upgrade. I don't know if that
if it's the Malzahn stuff, definitely a better match.
Right. I mean, nobody in that room was going to be able to run Malzahn's offense. Nobody left. Yeah. Like Brock Glenn and Cromenhoek are not running Malzahn's scheme.
Yep.
They belong in the Big Ten. They belong at the bottom of the Big Ten. Go play at Minnesota, for example. Shout out Zach Byron.
Sure. Well, and just to transition to our last little piece of player news, is that those guys were backing up DJU, who's also not in that quarterback room anymore, because DJU has officially announced his intentions to enter the NFL draft. Which I say, get ready to learn Canadian, buddy. Even that might be pushing it a little too far. Get ready to learn Arena League, buddy.
get ready to learn tight end, buddy. It's like
Careful.
Logan Thomas part 2. Okay. Well, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, maybe that as well. 2 more quick ones. Miller Moss to Louisville.
Yep, transferred into Louisville.
Fine.
Which interesting. I mean, Louisville got the up close look in the bowl game last year when he kind of torched them and had a brilliant game, and was never really quite the same this year after people had a little bit of film on him, I guess, and were just different cast characters around him. Other thought on that? What are we doing with Pierre Clarkson? Is he still there? Is he still there, or is he seeing some writing on the wall and ready to move on? I don't know.
I think you should maybe consider moving on. They've now recruited over him twice, officially.
Yeah.
Twice.
3 times, twice with transfers. I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember when he showed up.
Well,
but
this might be. Yeah. I was going to ask when did he show up?
he might have gotten here the same time Jack Plummer did. Which
Okay. If not,
that's a
then
name that we
3
haven't
times.
said on this podcast in about a year. So
Yeah. So, well,
anyways,
that's fine. And then Calandria transferred to Syracuse.
is that official?
I don't see it official, but Devin Hamilton said it, so I'll believe him.
I saw he was at least going to visit there. So, man,
Yeah. Anything can happen in the portal age, Mike. Georgia
Not
Tech
official.
had Romello Height, their top pass rusher, put his name in the portal this afternoon, and within about an hour and a half, he had crystal ball projections to Texas Tech. So, I mean, it's impressive how quickly these teams work, because nobody would ever do
Yeah.
any of that before he's actually in the portal.
right? Yeah, no such thing as tampering. I love when the reporters are like, "Yeah, team X, Y, and Z, they were trying to get him to enter the portal." I'm like, what do you mean? Oh, okay, yeah, tampering. That's right.
Yeah,
Fun.
right.
We
Sport,
can
love
put a
it.
pin. We can put a pin in this for maybe another podcast. But Mike Norvell basically said, "I'm going to take a $4.5 million pay cut and put it towards NIL efforts," which is what Brian Kelly just did. Not really a pay cut, but he was going to donate his salary and match up to $1 million voluntarily, in quotes.
Just happens to be
Hey,
coming off
it's
a
a pay cut.
disappointing season, but
Yeah, for both parties. Interesting.
how about that? Can I give you my little take on the transfer portal that I don't think I've really
Oh,
done
okay.
on this show before?
I was going to say I haven't heard a take on the transfer portal from you yet.
This is this is just, look, I see people where I'm I'm on a couple of Georgia Tech message boards and like that kind of thing. I see people absolutely losing their minds several times a day with this guy's entering the portal from my school, this guy's entering the portal from another school. I wonder if he's visiting. I wonder who we're going to get. Can this guy come back? Like, what's all going on? Blah, 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 blah. If that makes you happy, by all means, do it.
This is a great take. I love this take.
What I'm saying is I'm going to ignore all this stuff to the degree that I can until about July, and then I'm going to figure out who's on my team, and then we'll go from there, because this is
Beautiful.
a fool's errand trying to keep up with any of this for the next 3 months, basically, in my mind.
Great take. Have you met my friend Ricky? Because he's got this take except for recruiting. So fantastic. Excellent.
Yeah.
And
Just
both good takes. Both are good takes.
Yeah. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And this is like the worst version of like the 24-hour news cycle. I mean, I think it was almost midnight Saturday night that we got the Haynes King, Aaron Philo not going into the portal thing. Like, we don't need to be doing this at midnight on a Saturday.
Yeah.
Like, with no games going on, no nothing. Like, just let it go. Let it go. We'll figure it out in July. It'll be
Yeah,
fine.
get some sleep, Pete Thamel. Christ, dude. Just go to bed. hang out with your kids or something. What are we doing?
Absolutely. I think that's all I got. Anything else before we get out of here? Go watch some postseason games.
I'll tell you what, man. I'd rather watch. I only have a son at this point, but I'd rather watch my kid's t-ball game or like a daughter's dance recital before I'm tweeting about Zach Calzada and him coming back to the FBS. I mean, for the love of God, dude.
Yeah. Log off.
A lot,
Go
yeah.
outside.
Yeah, you don't need to report on that stuff too. I mean, come on. What are we? I mean, I guess he does because he's getting paid a lot of money. But Jesus.
Yeah, I do not envy him. I do not envy him.
Yeah.
Mike, let's get out of here. Let's come back later this week, and we'll preview some more games. We'll come back and recap these playoff games. I think we're looking at Sunday night, probably December the 22nd, that we'll come back and recap these games and, kind of keep it moving through the offseason. We'll keep it tuned here, and we'll keep you informed.
And maybe try to record later this week a preview.
Something, yeah. Yes, definitely previews, more recaps, lots of stuff. We got all sorts of, and maybe
Busy.
maybe
Still
a
busy.
recap of someone's season. Maybe, I don't know, who knows. It's busy season for sure.
Yeah. Still busy.
Yeah. We'll see if Connor O'Neill can come up at some point soon, because obviously a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, I'll send him a note.
Yeah, for sure. All right. In the meantime, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, Instagram, all those good places. You know the email address, Spotify, Google, youtube.com/@the-ACC Football Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button if you've not already. Had a lot of great participation in the chat tonight. Really appreciate the folks for shout out on a Monday night. 'Tis the season though, and so keep it tuned here. We're gonna keep the content coming your way as we get into the playoff and further into the offseason. We haven't even talked about really like recruiting at any level other than some of the portal stuff, I guess. So that's something else that we got to hit on at some point.
Yep. Yeah. I mean,
Just
we're gonna have
said
to.
you're not going to talk about it till July.
Well, but we also host a podcast, and the people demand what they demand. So
If we run out of content,
Just-
we'll circle back.
I'm just messing with you.
Circle
we
back.
give advice all the time on this show, and it clearly costs people money if they listen to us. So I don't know why we give advice, but
We're not financial advisors.
far from it. Far from
Yeah,
it.
far from it. If you're, yeah. Not gambling experts either.
Just
from
your
it.
local idiot.
That's right.
That was my nickname in high school.
Yeah.
Anyways, Mike Scott, anything else before we get out of here?
DJU, tight end. At the next
Yeah.
level. Yeah. Something.
If anything. Maybe his brother can
Accountant.
train him up to be a defensive end.
Accountant
his-
at the next level.
His brother's a
Insurance
wagon.
salesman.
His brother is an absolute wagon. So, maybe just do what he's doing.
Go meet him. Go meet his brother at DJU Nissan, opening soon near you.
In the market for a new car? Yeah. Okay.
You had U-Haul dealer right there.
Oh, DJ U-Haul. There you go. It's late. I'm tired. I'm not fast enough on my feet here.
Go to bed now.
Yeah. It's over. All right. We'll keep it coming your way. Keep it tuned here. A lot more to come from us. In the meantime, again, on Twitter, all those places, go find us there. For Mr. Mike McDaniel, for producer Scott, I am Joey Weaver. Thank you guys so much for listening. We will talk to you again very, very soon. Until then, go Ponies, go Tigers, and go ACC.